Hey guys, Justin with JHart Modelworks coming to you with a product review. Now, I don't do a lot of product review videos. Typically when I do, it's a product that I paid for out of pocket. I got it, I liked it, and I thought maybe you might find it useful as well. This video is going to be a little different in the fact that Gaahleri has sent this airbrush to me specifically to review for you. So didn't pay for it out of pocket, they did send it to me. Just want to put that out there, be upfront and honest, and you guys know that I try to be as honest with you as possible with things like this. But you also know that I've been looking to upgrade my airbrushes. You guys know I've been looking at an Iwata Eclipse and HPCS. Was on Brian's channel on one of his live streams a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to him about looking at an Iwata, and he's like, Justin, you know I spray Iwatas. He does. He's got an Eclipse and a Revolution. It's like one of my subscribers sent me a Gaahleri Swallowtail, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love the brush. I mean, he just raved about it. I called him a couple of days later. He raved about it all the way on my drive to work. He absolutely loved the brush. I'm not a fan of pistol grip airbrushes. I love my pen style airbrushes. So that's not what we have. So after talking to Brian, I went to Gaahler's website to kind of window shop, because if he's saying that he loves the Swallowtail so much, maybe the rest of their brushes are good as well. Watched a bunch of reviews. A lot of people seem to really like them. So I was window shopping. One of the things that I wanted to look at was to see if parts are readily available. Because, you know, I've had to replace a lot of parts on the Badgers. And if I, change out to a new airbrush, I kind of want to make sure that I can get parts for it. All the parts appear to be easily obtainable off their website, and prices looked pretty decent for all of their replacement parts. I think I was looking at like the nozzle. If you need a new nozzle, I think it's like $8. So, reasonably priced parts. While I was window shopping, I kind of saw a link up in the corner that said collaborate with Gaahleri, and I was like, well, it's worth a shot, right? Worst they can do is say no. So I reached out to them. They asked me for some social media information. They came back and was like, yeah, we like your work. We'd like to work with you. So they asked me what I wanted. I asked for the Mobius, which I'm pretty sure is what's in that box. We'll see. And they're like, sure, we'll send you something out. So that's where we're at now. Let's get this camera flipped around and check out what's in the box.
All right, here we are. My very first Gaahleri airbrush. Got some packing material in here, and we do in fact have a Mobius 3. Alright guys, so here is the box. It's a really nice box. It's a lot nicer than what my original brush came in. Some details on the back. So the plan is that we're going to get this thing out, we'll take a look at it, talk it over a bit, and then once we get done talking with it and looking at it here, we're going to take this into the booth. We're going to throw some primer in it. We'll throw some paint in it. We'll, basically put it through its paces and see how well we actually like using the brush. Inside the lid, we have a parts diagram, which is nice if you ever need to find a part. You need a replacement part or whatnot. You can actually find out what part you need. So you need to, looking for an O-ring, the Teflon O-ring inside here for the seal. There's an O-ring Teflon, your needle guide, stuff like that. We do get a note from Gaahleri, dear customer. Each airbrush goes a series of stringent tests before leaving the factory. It is basically telling you that they do actually use the brush to make sure it's working. So I've heard that from time to time you might find a tiny bit of paint in the brush. That would be why, because they actually spray the brush. So if you find an actual issue with the product, you don't need to return it. Just contact them and they will take care of you. I've heard that support from these guys is really good. On the back, you have all of their social media channels. You get a quick start guide. Tells you how to hook up the quick connector fitting, attaching the end of the airbrush hose to your airbrush. It does use a 1/8 inch, which is pretty standard. Most brushes use this. My Badgers do not. My Badgers have to have an adapter to convert them from their, they use like this tiny little end, and you have to convert it to the 1/8. So it's nice that you don't have to do that here. That's one less place for you to form an air leak later. And they do have an option for a quick connect in here. How to add paint and whatnot. General idea, you push down for air, you pull back for paint, how a dual action brush works. And it does kind of tell you, give you kind of a guide. If you're seeing something like this, your paint's too thick, it's all spotty and whatnot. This is called spider webbing, so the paint is too thin, and when it hits the surface, there's more air pressure, there's enough air pressure that it pushes the paint out because it's too thin, so that's telling you it's too thin. So that's giving you an idea on how to thin. A lot of guys will be like, hey, how much do I need to thin this, that, and the other? It really depends on your brush, your climate, your paint. There's a lot of different variables in there. So telling people how to identify that they've got a thinning issue, this is pretty cool. Then we get other languages. It gives you a guide for how to disassemble the brush and how to reassemble it. We've got some spare O-rings in here. This is nice. Neither of my Badger brushes came with spare O-rings. We have some of their lube for the brush. We have the airbrush itself. Oh, this is nice. This has a good weight to it. It's heavier. It's heavier than my Badger brushes. It's heavier than both of my Badger brushes. But it feels good. It's not like crazy heavy, but it's just got some heft to it. It's got nice, smooth trigger feel. Which, on both of my Badgers, I replaced out their trigger with what they call the Highboy trigger, which gives me a little more control. With the original trigger, it's way down here. But with this taller trigger, a slight change leverages more down here, which gives you a bit more control. But this feels really nice. It doesn't jar. A lot of times when you start with a brush, there'll be like this kind of hard jar at first. But this is just really smooth. So the area in here to grab your chuck. So sometimes you'll need to loosen up the needle or something like that, and that's what this is for, so you can grab this chuck and pull on it. And this is really nice looking. So something that you've got on here that I definitely don't have on my Badgers, neither one of my Badgers comes with this. This is a stopper, so you can set it up so that you can only pull back so much. So you can limit how much paint you're putting out. This is really useful if you're spraying something really hot, like zero paints. You guys know I've used zero paints in the past, and you can craze the plastic with zero paints really easily because they use an automotive grade lacquer thinner in there, and it's very aggressive. So you have to use just the slightest amount of paint and mist coat that on and build it up over several coats, or you'll actually damage the plastic, have to strip the model, then sand the body smooth before you can start over, because it actually etches into the plastic. Something like this actually stops you from doing that. If you know you're using a really hot paint, you just dial this in and you can't put too much down too fast. I had to learn. So You might consider, some people might consider it a crutch, because I had to old school learn trigger control. I had to learn how to control it and get just very, very little paint in there. But for especially someone newer or something like that, having that ability to just control that, or you're just moving along and you've got an aggressive paint, you can just save yourself that hassle and not have an issue where you accidentally pulled back too much. You can actually set that trigger and you can just say, okay, I only want to be able to pull out a little bit. I want to give it a whole lot. That's a nice feature that I just haven't had on my brushes before. Another thing that I don't have is this removable paint cup. So if you're doing like some really, really fine detail type work, and by being able to remove the paint cup, you can put just a couple of drops of paint in the brush, and while you're spraying, you've got better visibility. So when you're spraying here like this, you can't see the tip of the brush because the paint cup's in your way. So you're doing really fine work and you're needing to hold it at an angle so you can kind of see what you're doing and get a better look at it. But being able to remove the cup like this to do really fine work, that's really nice to be able to get in there and just see what's going on with the tip of that brush. So while we're at it, let's take a look at the paint cup. First off, we have, that's nice. So you got your paint cap, and it fits snug, but it's not like really, really hard to get off. That being said, it stays on. It doesn't just fall off, but it's not hard to get off. Another thing I'm noticing is that this is completely smooth. And why that's a big deal, this is what I get with the Badgers. Which, aside from the fact that it's plastic, which isn't a terrible thing, there's this groove in here, and you see right away what the problem is. If you go to spray clear coat, and that clear coat gets up in this, and you don't have this scrubbed really well, you're going to have red clear coat, which would be great unless you're spraying like a white body or something. If you're spraying a red body, fine, but anything else, you're going to get red in your clear. This would be a lot easier to clean up than trying to make sure that you get this clean, because there's a little lip in there. So we've got a little O-ring in here. Paint cup. Chrome is really nice on it. That chrome finish makes it easier to clean up. We will see over time how that holds up. I do spray some aggressive paints. Let's take this little rubber guard off. That's nice. I can actually put my finger over it, which is nice. So if you're spraying and you want to blow some air back up into the cup to mix your paint up and whatnot, you can put your finger, pull the trigger back, the air will come out, hit the blockage, come back up the needle chamber, and will bubble around in here. That's called blowing back through the airbrush. If you see right here, with the 105, I cannot do that. I have to start spraying first and pull the needle back, then I can put my finger over it to blow stuff back up, to blow air back up in there. Otherwise, you do what I just did and you stab yourself with the needle, and that is incredibly painful when you do that. It's not much of an issue on this one, but it's still there. You have to be a little careful. You can't just press on it. So that's nice that the air cap goes all the way over the needle. And here we have our air cap, which they make different air caps. So they make one that's like a fan style cap, or like a wider spray pattern. So they make a crown cap for the guys who like the crown. There's one that makes it just easier. Guys who spray a lot of acrylics, they will get a lot of tip dry. I don't get that because I spray lacquers. But if you've got an acrylic and you want to get in there with like a wet Q-tip or something and wipe it up, they make a tip that makes that a lot easier. And those can just be replaced. And here is the actual nozzle, which it has these little ridges around it. So air comes out through the brush, it gets into this chamber, and it's going to run through these, out through these little ridges, and over the tip of that needle. And because it's done like this, you're going to get a more even flow of air around the tip. You also have multiple air channels in there. So there looks like there's 3 holes. So that's going to get you a more, so you've got air coming out of the brush from 3 different places around the nozzle. That air comes out through those 3 holes. We'll go around the outside of this, and then we'll go through these channels around the tip of the nozzle, which then comes out around the tip of the needle. When you pull that brush, the air creates a pressure system, a low pressure right at the tip, and it draws the paint out. And that's what creates your paint atomization in an airbrush. So having this more evenly distributed around the nozzle is going to give you a more consistent spray pattern. So with the Badger, for example, you have one opening at the bottom for air. So all of your air comes out the bottom of the brush. It then has to come up into this chamber and go around these holes. So you've got 8 little holes around it. And which then comes out through here. Mine's kind of stuck together because I haven't taken it apart and cleaned it lately. But after it goes through these holes, where the tip goes through that hole there, it'll come out those 8 holes, and it will come across the needle, and again create your low pressure and pull your paint out through the very, very tip of the nozzle. But because all that air is coming out of the bottom and then has to go around, you're going to get a less consistent airflow, and you sometimes can feel like you've got more paint heading out from the bottom, like you've got more pressure from the bottom, because it has to go distribute itself around inside this chamber before it comes out. I think I've talked about all that I can think of to talk about, so let's go ahead and get this thing in the booth.
All right, guys, here we are at the bench. So Olivizel has a 3D printable model kit for the BAC Mono. This is the chassis. It's just like a cool little track toy type car. So I printed one up, and I figured this would be a really good part to do some test painting on because, you know, worst case scenario, I can print another one if I need to. We have our Mobius 0.3, and really cool, it comes with the quick disconnect and it's already installed. So it's already there. I would be assumed that it would be sealed properly and we're not going to have any kind of air leaks. It fits pretty snug. There's no air coming out. We're going to throw in some Mr. Surfacer 1500 black primer. Let's cut 50-50 with Mr. Leveling Thinner. Don't know how much of this we're going to go through, but let's give this a shot. Okay. Very light feel on this. Just the slightest pullback and you start getting paint. If
you can go really light on this as well. Go ahead and give this a bit more pull here. The draw on the trigger is really smooth. It's really comfortable. There's no jar. On my old brushes, you have like this, when you start to pull it back, you kind of have to give it a tug, and then it kind of jars and then pulls back. This is just very smooth. We'll open this brush up and see what she does. Our primer is atomizing really nicely. It's laying down super smooth. Mr. Surfacer always does, but that is just laying down beautiful. All right, we got almost that entire chassis with 1 cup of paint. That's not bad at all. Now, I was pulling back very heavy on it too. All right, guys, that is really not bad. Not bad at all. We put 2 coats of primer on this entire chassis. It is not a simple chassis. There are a ton of angles and curves, and we used about 1.5 cups of primer. That is not bad at all. I was pulling back way too heavy too. I was pulling back almost all the way just to kind of see what it would do. But honestly, you probably don't need to pull back more than maybe about half the trigger pull. You don't need to pull all the way back. And you get a really nice paint lay down. Atomization is amazing. It atomizes the paint really, really well. All right, guys, so I am incredibly impressed with the primer on this. This surface is going to be very rough. There's the way this prints, it orients like this, and then all of your supports hit the bottom where they're not going to be seen, but it leaves hundreds of little pock marks all through here. So I had to sand them smooth, and when I did, I went with like a 120 grit paper, a very aggressive paper, so it's left a lot of marks and divots and scratches. So that is not the airbrush's fault. That is just my poor sanding job done on this because I was just kind of rushing it together. But the rest of this paint is fantastic. Well, the primer, this is just the primer. The brush does a great job of atomizing the paint. It goes down really light. Everything is nice. It doesn't spit. It's just an absolutely fantastic brush. We're going to put down some Tamiya's LP19. This is their gunmetal. Before we do, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this brush a bit. Now, one thing that I am not overly in love with is the cup. And there's nothing wrong with the cup. The cup is perfectly fine, but it's a little narrow at the bottom, which makes cleaning it out just a little more difficult than my original brushes. You can see with the Patriot, the bottom of that cup is nice and wide, which you can't even really see because it's dark, but that's okay. So it's easier to get some paper towel or a brush or something down in there. So let's go ahead and put some gunmetal down on this chassis here. Oh, that's super smooth. Very little trigger pull, and I'm getting a really nice even coverage. Paint goes exactly where I want it to go. Very consistent.
Let's talk about what this brush is compared to what this brush isn't. Now, I've seen some guys try to review this brush and compare it to a $400 Harder & Steinbeck, and that's disingenuous at best. This is not a $400 airbrush. This is not a Harder & Steinbeck Slayer. It's not a top-end Iwata Slayer. This is a $70 brush that can hang all day long with my $100 plus badgers. That's what this brush is. This brush is a great introductory brush. If you're one of those guys who's just getting into airbrushing and you are looking at the air compressors that come with the brush, like the cheap little combo, like $100, get the one that doesn't have the brush with it. Just skip the airbrush, jump straight to this brush. You will absolutely not regret it. This is a great brush. It's very consistent. Don't skip the compressor though. Those little round compressors are super workhorses. Get the one with the extra tank on the bottom. It will help your compressor last a lot longer. But those are great compressors. The $20 little airbrushes, look, I started using a Master airbrush. I've got a G22 and two G233s. They still work. If I had like an emergency situation where like all of my airbrushes were broken and I needed something, I could make them do. That's what I sprayed for like 3 years when I started. But save yourself some headache, jump straight to this brush. You will not regret it. If you are one of those guys who bought the compressor that came with that little Chinese airbrush, and you're at that point where you're thinking, you know, I think I could look at something a little better and I could step up my game, this is definitely going to be a game changer for you. This is a much better brush. Like I said, it has been hanging tight with both of my badgers. It's been just working like a champ. Like all airbrushes, there are good points about this brush and there are bad points about this brush, and you know, I try to give you guys an honest review, so I want to talk about both. Starting with some of the bad points, to get those out of the way, you know how it is, get the bad stuff out of the way first, then get onto the good stuff. There are about 3 issues that I have with this brush. The first of those 3 issues, and probably the worst of them, is machining on some of the threaded parts. Now, the worst of these is this needle chuck nut. This thing is, the threading on it is very loose. You can see it actually wiggles in place. Now, that being said, it's just wiggling the nut. It is not actually loosening the actual needle chuck. The needle stays firmly in place no matter how you wiggle this thing. So it looks like it's holding tight and it's not really that big of a deal. I will be keeping an eye on it to see if we have any issues. You're definitely going to see this brush a lot more on the channel. Another place where the threading is kind of loose is right here in the paint cup. And this again is not really an issue, because once you actually screw it down, it screws down nice and secure. It's just one of those things, You know, some of the machining and the threading is not like the most tightest of tolerances. Another issue that I have with the brush itself is the actual width of the bottom of the paint cup. It's fairly narrow down here compared to my Badgers. This is a slightly smaller brush than the one I use in my air booth, and I basically just use it to get down in here. When I clean, I do not break a brush down unless I really feel like I'm having problems with it. I'll throw some lacquer thinner in there, I will get a brush down in there, and I'll just swish it around until I get it everything loose and clean out there, and I just spray that lacquer thinner out and move on to my next color. With the brush that I have out there is a little bit wider than this, and I have a little bit of a hard time getting that brush down in here to the very bottom. And that's just my opinion. It's a little too narrow for my taste. And the last issue I have with it is the length of the needle cap itself. Now, I told you guys that that was a good thing, and it actually is, because you can sit there and you can blow air back without stabbing the crap out of your finger. It is a little bit long though, and you can get paint built up in here. So if you press that air down, that air is going to hit that paint that's gathered in there and shoot out the end and splatter your paint job. All airbrushes have the potential to do this. Paint can gather up on the tip of the needle itself in any airbrush, and it can gather up inside the air cap if you've got the air cap on. But with this being as long as it is, it's a little more prevalent with this brush. It's more prevalent than it is with either of my Badgers. However, good spraying practice is already that you should not be pushing this air down while you're pointed at your subject. Proper airbrush, handling, you should be pointed away from your subject when you push the air down, then start pulling the trigger back and spraying your part, and that's going to keep you from getting the splatter. Like I said, splatters are possible with any brush. So that's going to be a wrap for the bad things. Good things about this brush. I cannot say enough about how consistent this brush is and how consistently it sprays. If I had a single word to define this brush, it would be consistent. Airflow through the brush is consistent around the needle. The spray pattern is consistent out the tip of the brush. Paint atomization is beautiful. It's great at atomizing paint. Now, I sprayed less paint using this brush than I would have with either of my Badgers. The paint atomization is really good. Everything lays down super smooth. The trigger is very smooth and very consistent. As you pull that trigger back, you start getting paint almost immediately. There's not a huge gap like there are with some airbrushes. Like some of the masters that I started out with, you could get like halfway back on that trigger before you started getting the slightest amount of paint, and then it was like almost all your paint was coming out. I mean, it was almost a single action airbrush. It was that bad. This is very consistent. As you pull back, you get more and more paint. It is a very smooth flow on the paint, and it's very consistent as you draw that back. It is a very good brush. I'm very happy with it. You're going to see this a lot more on the channel. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap on the review for this video. I am going to put a link to Gaahler's website down below where you can check this brush out as well as all the rest of their airbrushes. If you click on that link and you purchase anything, it is an affiliate link, so I want to be upfront and honest. I will get a couple of dollars out of the purchase. It's not like a couple of dollars that's added to your purchase. It just comes out of the total price as a small, token back to me for referring you. If you don't want to click on my affiliate link, just go to Gaahleri.com and check out their website. The Mobius 0.3 is a fantastic brush. It works really well for what I've used it so far. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate you watching, and I will catch you on the next one.